So moving right along, we have Smartbox up next. And Alicia, it's all yours. I'm going to just restart this and let you get on your way. Thank you so much. Oh, you're muted.
That's
I'll
important
restart.
to make sure people can hear me. Thank you.
Here we go.
All right, I am just getting screen sharing going and we'll get started. All right, I am Alicia Alverson. I am a speech pathologist and part of the clinical education team at Smartbox. And today we will be talking about SuperCore and looking at some of the motor planning and efficiency features that have been built into SuperCore. So just to start, what is SuperCore? If you're not familiar with it, it is our core vocabulary system that we've built at Smartbox. It's symbol-based, robust, contains a lot of core language, has over 2,500 of the most common words and phrases, and a lot of room for customization to add that personalized vocabulary. We've based it on research, best practice, and clinical experience. And what we mean by that is the creator of SuperCore took a deep dive into research, took a deep dive into, okay, how do children, how do teens, how do adults learn language? How do they develop language? How do they use language in their communication? And then organize SuperCore around her findings. And so this led to an organization with consistent and meaningful vocabulary in two sizes, SuperCore 30 and SuperCore 50. And then what comes along with those two are some learning grid sets for early exploration called SuperCore Learning. And in each of these sizes, you'll also see two different vocabulary sets that you have access to, and you'll always have access to these child and teen and adult versions. And the differences in those are the vocabulary that you'll see. So child will be much more play-based vocabulary. Teen and adults, you'll start to see more vocabulary based on routines, daily activities, leisure activities, and then more mature vocabulary content. And SuperCore is also accessible for any access method. So the key efficiency and motor planning features that we're going to look at today will be semantically related words and how those are organized, useful next words, some grammar tools, and then activity-specific vocabulary that's shown alongside of core vocabulary. So we're just going to switch gears for a second. And here is SuperCore 50. So as you look at this, you'll see you have some core language here on the left side of the screen. So everything to the left of these two turquoise columns is your core language, and those are your 50 core words, hence SuperCore 50. And then you'll have some of that research-based vocabulary that we've looked at over here on the right side, highlighting some daily and play activities. So the first thing we'll look at is semantically related words. And those are just words that kind of are grouped together because they don't mean the same thing, but they work together in similar meaning. So for example, if we look at topics and we go into vehicles, we'll see the word fire truck. And so there's a couple things I want to point out on this page. So one, we have a semantically related organization that's also organized by word use frequency. So in SuperCore, everything's organized in columns. So columns from left to right, and along the top, you'll see generally the most frequently used words of these vehicle categories. And underneath them will be semantically related words. So underneath fire truck, you have police car, ambulance, and lifeboats. So all emergency vehicles. So then if we start talking about fire truck and we talk about who drives a fire truck or where a fire truck might be housed, we'll start to notice some of those features that show up in similar locations across SuperCore. So if we go to fire truck and we're looking for who drives a fire truck, to decrease cognitive load as we're learning where vocabulary is, we have put these words where possible in the same spot. So firefighter is right here again in that top middle square in the same spot the fire truck was.
Firefighter.
Same thing will be true if we look for where we can find these things in places. And we're going to go into buildings. And as you've probably guessed already, firehouse will be right here in the same spot that fire truck and firefighter existed. And if you kind of paid attention to the words that were underneath it, you'll notice that here we have police station and hospital that correspond with police car and ambulance as well. So those are semantically related words. If we jump back to our home screen, we'll look at useful next words. And useful next words are these purple words across the top. And these are helpful for expanding the core vocabulary that's available on our main homepage. Right now, they're question words because I have a blank chat writing window. So I don't know yet if I'm going to have a question or if I'm composing a statement. And so the next best words are showing up as questions. But as I select some of these core words, these purple words are going to change, and they will change really predictably. So it's not word prediction. So it's not learning as you're typing. They are programmed to trigger very specific words, often core words. So for example, when I hit want, I have all, what, one, some, and your that pop up. So I can say a simple phrase like, I want one, or I want some. Same thing if I go to stop. I have almost the same words that pop up, and the ones that are the same are in the same location. But then I have when that pops up because that makes more sense for stop. And you'll notice when, even though it's different than what popped up in wanting, is in that same spot as those 5 question words. So anytime that when is triggered with any of these core words, it'll always pop up in this 5th spot. So you can start to create real motor patterns and motor plans for multi-word utterances. So same thing as you go along, like will pop up some similar words, and the ones that are the same that we've seen, again, are in those same exact locations. So we're going to see useful next words pop up again in just a minute as we look at grammar tools. So you may have noticed some of the grammar changing as I was saying certain words. That's what we call smart grammar. So we have smart grammar tools built right in, so the user doesn't have to go into an extra hit to add morphology at most of the time. Sometimes they may want to change the word endings, and we've added some really simple ways for them to do that. So for example, if I say it's going to trigger my actions to turn into that third person singular action form. So maybe I'm going to use one of my useful next words. It thinks. But I don't want to say thinks. I actually want to use the past tense because I'm talking about yesterday. So up in my magic wand, I can find my different grammar endings. And I can say it thought instead and correct that quite quickly. Another place that those grammar endings will pop up is through those useful next words. So if I say it again, I'm going to show how this grammar change stays true as I expand into my more actions. And so maybe I want to say it listened, but I have listened. So I'm going to say listens. And then up in my useful next words, I have my grammar endings up here. So I can quickly change that. Listened. So those are some efficiencies built in for grammar and morphology that will be really consistent throughout SuperCore. And then the last feature we're going to look at is activity-related vocabulary and how that sits alongside core. And this is kind of the bread and butter of SuperCore. This is where we did the research where we said, all right, we know core vocabulary is so important because of its flexibility, But we also know that children learn language in context. They learn language in their routines, in play activities, and it's important to have access to that motivating, that meaningful vocabulary alongside of our core words so we can start building really robust, really flexible messages. So we did that here through our dynamic columns. So you've got daily activities, which will be more of your routines. And then if I jump back, we have play activities. So we'll look at building as an example. So as I went through all those, you'll notice that I didn't lose access to my core vocabulary. Those 50 words stayed right there in the same spot. And then to the right of them, I now have activity-specific vocabulary around a building activity. And you'll notice a lot of these words are really core words as well. And so again, where possible, we put those core words in the same spot if there is another sequence or another pathway to get to that word. For example, the word again. The main spot for again lives under little words. And you can see that under little words, again appears in the same spot that it appears in our building activity. Same thing is true for off. So that's a position word. So if I open up my positions, off is right here in that same spot that it is in our building activity. Same is true for big and little. If I go under describe, big and little are right here in that same location. So lots of motor planning that's built in as a compensation for having multiple pathways to get to the same word, which gives a little bit of flexibility for efficiency on where you find these words. So you can use context to find these core vocabulary words. You can also use motor planning to find these core vocabulary words. And then if I jump into a different activity and pull up ball, for example, we see some repetition again with some of these core vocabulary. So again is right here in that same spot. Big and little are similar. And as you can probably guess, if you went looking for up and down, they would be right here in that lower right corner under our position words, up and down. Okay, so those are some of the features of SuperCore, some of the features that I like to highlight for efficiency and for motor planning. And then if you are interested in learning more about this and more about how you can customize some motor planning, or even say, you know what, I want, again, to only ever appear in one location, those things are possible to do as well. And we have a lunch and learn coming up in, well, about a month from now, that will dive into this topic a little bit more. So in the middle of October, we have two of them, October 15th and October 17th. We have two lunch and learns that are going to specifically dive into efficiencies and motor planning with SuperCore. And then the following month in November, the 19th and the 21st, we will be doing a session on personalizing SuperCore. So all the different places that we can personalize SuperCore. Additionally, if you're wanting to learn more about SuperCore on your own, on our Smartbox Academy, we have several courses that run through SuperCore, personalizing it in Grid or in Grid for iPad, and then choosing some different vocabulary options, as well as on our hub, we have lots of resources as well.